Today, we're talking to Nick Calver, VP of Financial Services at Palo Alto Networks, about his greatest leadership insights from over 20 years in leadership. Thank you to Fin for sponsoring this episode. To learn more about the #1 AI agent for customer support, go to fin.ai/CTO. You're listening to Joel Beasley, Modern CTO.
One of the things that caught my attention about you was that in the prep documents that we have, it makes a point to say that it's not about just the amazing career. It's now about helping other people. How did that come about?
That's a great question. I guess as we, in my younger career, start studying, there's the ambition, there's the drive. The big thing that motivates me is about making a difference. And that's making a difference at work, making a difference at home, and just talking to Josh about, I'm going to coach a load of children playing soccer tonight. I know for the UK watchers, it will be football, but for the world, it's soccer. And it's all about that. But then I think I reached a stage in my career, maybe late 30s, early 40s, where the personal ambition is you then start to actually think about maybe legacy and thinking about other people. So how can I help other people? And there's been a few occurrences in my career where I've worked or had people work for me, who have then worked alongside me, who have then overtaken me. And there's nothing more satisfying. You know, if you can help somebody grow, I guess it's like my children. I tell my children to stand on my shoulders. And what I mean by that is wherever I've got, I want them to climb up. I want them to use me as support to actually grow and make it a more of a positive difference to the world. It's about helping others. So there's very much been this thing in the career and the workplace, but also then outside of that. And I work with an amazing guy called Dr. Paul Stoltz, who's American, Californian based. And he does lots of books on overcoming adversity, but he's also in a similar positive intention. How can we actually help others? How can we help them meet their objectives? How can we help them be more satisfied in life? And I could go into a whole lot of things on Paul with the adversity quotient, where he starts to, he looks at your IQ, your intelligence, which we were talking about earlier, your EQ, which everybody's familiar with, your emotional intelligence, and then your AQ is your adversity quotient. And he's scientifically proven that people with a high AQ, which can be measured, are happier, are healthier, and more successful. And I would expect them to actually give back to society. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but it's very much about trying to help others, but my family and the wider community as a whole, and in the workplace, certainly people who work for me.
So adversity quotient, I like that. I have not heard that. Yeah.
No, Dr. Paul Stoltz, he wrote, how to harness the power of adversity. He wrote another book called True Grit. He also helped coach the US Olympics team last year or last time. So he's been involved in actually helping that. And he also helped one of the first blind mountain climbers to ascend Everest. I think it's a guy called Eric Weimeyer, who how you climb Everest blind, I don't know. How you climb Everest full stop, I don't know. But just he's a remarkable human being. But it's all about just making things happen and focusing on what's important. I guess he talks about sort of standing back, looking at the wider environment, understanding the context of something, and then bringing ideas together so you can analyze it, then coming up with solutions. And it's interesting, he'll say, so Nick, what could you do to make sure this doesn't happen? You maybe come up with 3 or 4 different ideas. And say, so what's one specific thing you think you could do that will make a difference, even be a small difference? And what he's doing is using your brain and just helping your brain process masses of information, which we often are presented with, bring it down, narrow it down into a single action, and getting you to take ownership and assigning ownership, and then getting a date. So you really, I guess it's like compressing a big program down into sort of single tasks ultimately. But those tasks are about helping people develop, helping people face into adversity. and face into those challenges. I could talk for the whole hour on that, and I know you want to cover some other stuff, but so I'd let you know.
I'm curious though. We'll just let the conversation go where it goes. No. So has he ever been like an official mentor? Like, have you engaged him as a coach, or do you just consume his content and hang out with him?
So when I was 40 years old, 39, 40 years old, I was at the company called Aviva, and Aviva had 30,000 employees all around the world. And for whatever reason, I was identified as one of the top 100 leaders in the company. So I was shipped off to this hotel in London. As you know, we all go to these hotels for conferences. And I was locked away in a room with Paul and 100 other people for 3 or 4 days. To give you some context, just before I was shipped off, I'd been offered a job at Lloyds Bank. So I resigned. I wrote my resignation letter and handed that in. And it was quite interesting. My boss at the time, a great guy called Malcolm Simpkins, said, "Nick, I know you resigned, but why don't you go on the course? It will help you develop. It will give you some new skills, and it may change your mind. But I want to invest in you." And Malcolm was very much about that. So I went on the course, and Paul taught us a lot. He talked, he anchors lots of things in climbing and those sorts of analogies. And he talks about in life, you're walking up a mountain, and there's a storm coming, and the storm will come into your face. And it's, what do you do at that point? Do you sort of hunker down and I'm using the US term there, I'd say crouch down, but getting the multilingual there. Hunker down behind a mound and just wait for the storm to pass? Or do you just stand tall and stand proud and walk towards the storm and face into it, and maybe bring others and have the other support, and you push into it? Because in reality, I guess life is that constant storm. And there's that constant battle. And I love walking in the mountains. I don't know about you, but I'm often walking in the mountains with my children. You get to the top of a hill and they say, "Oh, is that it, Dad?" And then just as you get to the brow of the hill, you see the next hill, which is higher and a bit further away. And you just keep on going, because that's what life is about. By going on these journeys and climbing up these mountains, you're getting the experience, you're learning, and you're actually also, when you're doing it with other people, you're growing together. I think that's a great thing to do.
Yeah, you're reminding me, when I got to the top of my first mountain,
yeah,
I was like, oh, okay, so it takes a decade. like that's what it feels like. Because when you're I'm 37, when you're in your, teens and then your 20s, the ambition and the drive and trying to achieve this thing, and then you finally get to it, and then it's actually very weird, because you're like, what, the only other thing to do is to go down and climb another mountain. It's like, all right, well, now I'm going to go climb another mountain, but I'm going to do it better this time because I have all my experience from getting to the top of the first one.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's just great fun, and that's true of life. And like when I had my first son, and that was a big mountain, it took a few years to have my first son, and then we went down the mountain again, and we had twins after that, and one of the twins is the painting behind me. So so it's good.
Oh, nice. So you got 1 boy, 2 girls?
The twins are one girl, 1 boy, and then my oldest is a boy.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, I've got 2 boys and 1 girl as well.
Ah, fantastic. Yeah, it's a good mix. But a girl, nature and nurture, they're both, the twins brought up exactly the same, but lovely, lovely kids, but different personalities. So.
Oh, they're so different. Ours are really close in age. They're like 18 months apart. So, I love that. So last question on adversity before we wrap up, and it might be a tough one. What's the greatest adversity you have ever faced in your life?
Ooh.
It could be personal. It doesn't have to be work related.
It's interesting. On the personal side, I'll cover both actually, if it's okay with you. The personal side is my son. We had 7 years of IVF to achieve having our first child. The emotional roller coaster that we went on through those 7 years was extraordinary. And my eldest son doesn't appreciate how much work we put into creating him and what a pain he is now, but he's a good kid. You then come into the adversity at work. It comes into a people thing. So I've managed lots of people. I manage 500, 1,000, 2,000, whatever, as lots of other leaders have. And I took a call one day where one of my team had committed suicide. And I think I was in my early 30s, and to get a call from my lady called Hazel, who's a friend in HR, and to say that this person had committed suicide, that was a shock. And then dealing and processing with what happened to him, you go through the questions of, could I have done anything? I think everybody always thinks that. And then, okay, so how are we going to manage that? How are we going to help his team? How are we going to help his family? It was, that's something tough. And I don't think any management school train you for that. But I think you probably learn through life about, and you build up your own personality. So that was a tough one, but I had some great people I worked with and some great guidance. And we got through it, and their family got through it. But that was a really tough one. And with suicide, as we know, in the world increasing, and then it's something that's sort of very close to me now. And unfortunately, I know probably everybody knows people who have taken their lives. And if there's anything I can do to help prevent that or just get that message out, that's something I'd definitely support.
Yeah, maybe Josh can find a link for the show notes for some
that would be
help
good
and resources there.
Thank you.
I'd say, and thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's always tough when you get asked, like, what's the most difficult thing that has ever happened in your life? But I think it's important because you brought up adversity. And for me, I believe my life has been the most shaped by the choices I make in the most difficult moments.
Yep.
So for me, my two, I'd have to say, is when I was like 11, 12, I got hit by a car and I was in a wheelchair for a year. Yeah. And then halfway through my recovery, I fell and like re-broke my legs. And so it was like quite the difficult thing. And so learning how to walk again, that's one of those moments where, like, your legs are atrophied, they're sticks, and you have to like rebuild them from the ground up. And you want to give up so bad. Like, you want to not do it. You're like, but you just you have to make your fork in the road situation. You have to make a choice. You either let the story define you as the worst thing, and this is why you have all these problems, or just overcome it. And so I'd say that I'm lucky, I'm blessed, whatever you want to call it, that at that young age, I chose to overcome it. But then that created a pattern. And then as more difficult things happened later in life, I could compare it to that. I was like, okay, this is hard, but it's not as hard as learning how to walk again. Like, I'll be okay.
No, that's fantastic. That's incredible.
And then my second one was like late 20s. My mom had a stomach ache, went to the hospital, and within 3 weeks she passed away. The silver lining there is I got to hold her hand and say goodbye to her, like, as she passed. But that moment was like, there's no words I could say to people to express how you feel and like how you realize and understand that life is finite when you hold someone's hand as they pass. It's a really unique experience. And then it caused me to value time more.
It's interesting. Are you okay if I tell you a funny story about death?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So my father passed on November the 5th, 2 years ago. And he had a brain hemorrhage. He collapsed, taken to hospital, but he was still alive. And he was in the sort of do not resuscitate. And my brother, my sister, my mum in a room, I was holding his hand. And the nurses said, and you've probably been there, the nurse said, the breaths will take longer and then they'll stop. And there's a clock on the wall. And I'm an IT guy, so I'm always looking at time and motion and things. And I was sort of figuring out in my brain, there's 4 seconds gap and then 10 seconds and then 15. And I could see it reasonably quickly progressing. And then 20 seconds, and then it went to 30 seconds. And then it went up, and I got up, let go of his hand, said to my brother, he's gone. And about 45 seconds later, he took another breath. And we couldn't help but sort of just smile. And he was always stubborn, and he just had to take that one last breath. And at 45, and that was it. But so you know what it's like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then that just causes you to value life in a different way. I think more is not even the right word. It's just different. Yeah.
And I appreciate the time, and my mum's still there, so I see her every week, and that's important.
Dude, we're getting deep at the beginning of an episode.
Sorry.
This usually happens at the end.
we can go to the business now if you want.
No, but this is good. I'm glad to get to know you. Honestly, I've resonated with many of the things that you've said. So like, for example, me with growing, like my background's pretty simple, built and sold 3 businesses and then started the podcast and did it in like the software space.
That's not pretty simple. Yeah, you're being modest there. That's not simple, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, but what happened was at first it was the product and the energy and the momentum, and then of course the money. Anyone who doesn't say that that's important is just not. They're just leaving it out. And so like that was so exciting, and that would get. And then the growth, like growing as leader. And then what I found is that 2 things that can't be like completely filled, like you can't achieve it and just have the status, is growing as a leader. It's something that's always happening. So that's very enjoyable for me, like always becoming just slightly better. And the second, or at least trying to. And the second thing is watching the other people grow. I did not know how rewarding it would be, Nick, to hire someone who was like working at a dog groomer and watch them become a personal assistant and then all the way to the head of sales and then like running sales. Like that to me, like watching that person grow through the company was like making a bet on someone and watching it work out because they had good, solid core. That's rewarding.
And it's them maybe growing as a human being and an individual as well. And it's where they're helping other people because they learn the skills, and humility is probably a really valuable skill. When I meet and talk with these CEOs, CIOs, I don't see myself as any better. So if I meet a CIO of a small company, I'll know better than him. And if I meet the CEO of a huge company, they're no better than me. We're all different. We're all human beings. We're here with our purpose. But I think it's maybe having that mutual respect and really importantly, listening to people, listening to, as we're doing that, listening to their story, learning from that, maybe picking up some nuggets of information, and then using that. The Paul Stoltz and the adversity. My children, they get quite sort of frustrated sometimes when I'm teaching them about adversity and look at the positives. Okay, so there's a challenge here, but there's also an opportunity. And just think how you almost visualize. I don't know. Have you ever run a marathon at all, Joe?
No, I haven't run a marathon.
So neither have
Josh has though. Josh is like a marathon runner.
Oh no, only a half marathon, but
okay.
But it's
close enough. Yeah.
But it's like with any event, and it could be a work event or a marathon or something. It's somebody told me to you when they ran the London Marathon, and you get to that last 100 meters or 25 yards or something, and you're coming in. And you see your family and just trying to bottle up or just shutting your eyes and just feeling the emotion, the passion, the success when you get there. That's something that's quite extraordinary. And if you can help other people visualize that, and when they're visualize the outcome, the positive feelings. I guess in reality, now when I'm talking to customers, it's about communicating the positive outcomes that they'll get from working with us. Or like when the guys ask me to come and talk to you, it's about the positive outcomes from this conversation. As long as it's mutually beneficial, I think that's something that's important to me.
I fully agree. I think one of the hardest things in life is to keep the main thing, because you have this vision, you want to do this big thing, and then you have to focus on details to achieve details, but then you have to come back out and constantly remind yourself. One of the best things that I've learned that helps me with this all the time, I learned it from some Navy SEAL I watched on YouTube or something. He said HALT, H-A-L-T. Have you heard this one before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. If HALT, acronym, hungry, angry, lazy, or tired. If you're any of those things, don't make any decisions. If you're hungry, if you're angry, if you're lazy, or you're tired, just halt, just stop. Go get some rest, go get some food, relax. Because the worst decisions I've ever made in my life, I was hungry, angry, lazy, or tired. I was just like, screw it. I'm tired. And that's like really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I'm going to take that up. So I've got something to take away from you, which is good. So thank you.
Yeah. Passing it along from the Navy SEALs. Because the reason why I thought of that is because you were talking about essentially training to failure. Like you have to get to the point where your body wants to quit and then get it to continue to go through the vision of what's to come, right? And they're training to failure all the time, right?
I train to failure 4 times a week in the gym. So I do train a lot.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah. And I certainly train to failure. Another quick story. Bench press, I'm trying to think of weight-wise, 260 pounds. And I can lift, so 260 pounds on there. Push the bar up, the bar on the right-hand side hit the bench. So the left-hand side went up, the bar on the right came down and broke my ribs. And then I had a very slim waist. So I love the gym. I love the exercise. It's great. Exercise is so important for mental and physical well-being. But yeah, don't be silly like I was and drop 200 plus pounds on your chest. It's not a good move.
Oof. How long did that take you to recover?
Being the overcoming adversity and stubborn person, I got up my friends lifted the weight off. I got up off the bench. I was struggling to breathe, but I thought I'm just going to work my way through this. So I went over to another machine, a pec deck. It's true. And got on there and pushed the arms together. And I was really struggling to breathe, but I didn't want to show anybody in the gym. So I just sort of calmly put it back, sort of waved goodbye, walked to the car, rang my wife and said, yeah, I'm coming home. I'm okay, but don't worry if looks like I'm struggling to breathe. So but it's just, I've broken a lot of bones over the years with various rugby and motorcycles and stuff like that. So
you sound like if you lived in Tennessee, we'd hang out. Real quick, thank you to Finn for sponsoring this episode. Finn is the #1 AI agent for customer service with a 65% average resolution rate. Finn is built to handle complex multi-step queries like returns, exchanges, and disputes, delivering high-quality, personalized answers just like your best human agent. Finn is trusted by over 5,000 customer service leaders and top AI companies, including Anthropic and Synthesia. Finn works on any help desk. You don't have to overhaul your current system to get the best AI agent for customer service. Priced at only 99 cents per resolution with a 90-day money-back guarantee. If you're ready to transform your customer service experience, find out how at fin.ai/CTO. Let's talk about this credit card migration crisis. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I was at Lloyd's Bank, Lloyd's, and we merged with some banks and we divested, and it was 30 million customers in the UK, so the biggest retail bank, and we transferred also. We were at that time, I think it's Wachovia Bank was transferring all the funds across via Lloyd's, so we were the hub of the US money coming into Europe at that point. But one weekend, we did a number of migrations and consolidations. We headed down to a military exercise. So what we'd do is we'd rehearse to a point and then back out. So you'd have 5-10 weekends where you're doing 24-hour shifts, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to just practice and rehearse. And so we were at a point where we were migrating about 15 million customers across on their credit cards. And, everyone's got a balance on their credit card. Everyone's got their numbers. So every penny, every cent has to be accounted for. And I was running the incident side of things. And there's a great leader called Peter Hayes actually running actual migration. And we got to the go-no point. And I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, where we knew that if we didn't go forward, we'd have to back out because it took so much time to get everything back to it as it was, restore it and test it all. And so the 1 o'clock call was absolutely critical. And we all got around this table, and you go around the table and everyone's saying, yes, yeah, we're good to go. And there's this one guy at the table, and he was young, 20s, 30s. And he had the courage to say, no, we're not good to go. So, okay, so what's happened? And so the numbers don't add up. What we started with, we've now got less. There's something not right. So suddenly everybody wanted to talk to him. Everybody wanted to question him. And Peter and myself just sort of protected him, and said, right, you need to go off, and I call him Simon, you need to go off and just double check your figures, double check your facts, and then we'll make a decision. And Pete said, how long have we got? We really had to make a decision by 2:00. 2:00 was going to be tight, but we could maybe squeeze it in. So about 1:25, Simon stuck his hand, Nick, come over. And he said, I've made a mistake. He said, the figures do add up. And it's like, oh, whoa. Okay, so we made a mistake, fine. He went through it. I got him to double check again, because you don't want to make a mistake 2 or 3 times. Double checked again. It was good. We were good to go. So we had the call at 2:00, the go, no go. Everyone stuck their hand up, all good. And it went. And so the migration happened, all the credit cards worked. No customer knew anything about it because it was all overnight when systems were down. But the bit that several things sort of struck in my mind, and a real learning, I think as a leader. One is that young man, the strength, the courage that he had to stand in front of all these very senior, very old, very powerful people and stop. There was 300 people on site. All the work they'd done, he just said, sorry, your work's not good enough because the numbers don't add up. That took a lot of courage to stand up and do that. And so really proud of him to do that. And then it probably took just as much or even more courage to say, I made a mistake. I did everything with the best intention. And people often say, you don't come to work to do a bad job. That's true. You come to work to do a good job. He did everything with the best intention. He made a mistake. We've all worked with spreadsheets. It happens. So that was good. But the other thing was about Peter and the way there wasn't the sort of, what on earth are you doing? It was 100% supportive. Pete's experienced guy. Let's give this guy some room. Let's protect him. Let's give him a buffer. He doesn't need to be deviated from his task. He just needs to focus on it. Let's look after him. And then after we'd actually communicated, there was no criticism of him. It was supportive. He got bought more beer. I appreciate it was 8:00 Sunday morning. We got back to the hotel, and maybe you shouldn't drink at 8 a.m., but we had been working through the night. Everybody was buying him pints. He became a sort of hero, really, ultimately, because of that courage and that behavior. And yeah, he's gone on to have a successful career. But it's those difficult moments where you sometimes have to make difficult calls, and you just have to pause and stop and support your colleagues, support people, help them, give them what they need. And you can get through this together, but it's that team effort as well. So there's a load of stuff there. I don't know whether you want to extract anything or ask any questions.
No, I can totally respect that individual for them standing up, and that's a hard thing to do,
yeah,
especially earlier on in your career, especially when everyone's more senior than you.
Yeah, and these were several levels more senior. So, but all credit to him, and I wish him all the best.
Ooh, that was you had me on the edge of my seat, man. I was like, is this like a banking crisis that's going to happen? Did this like take down London for 24 hours or something? Their payment network.
I've had those as well. So we could go into whichever ones you want. So data centers
tell me about the greatest outage you've ever been a part of.
Oh, that's not a good thing, is it? But I ran all the data centers. It was one of the things that in charge of all the data centers for Lloyd's, and got a call from a guy called Lawrence Robinson, worked for me, ran the data center, was physically there, and said, we just lost power. A bit like the recent event at Heathrow, but we handled it a lot better at the time. So when you lose power, you've got battery. The battery will run the data center for 30 minutes, and we had 3 generators on site. The generators would kick in within 10 seconds. So the batteries were just there for a quick switch over. The generators had a day tank of diesel. Each of the generators, they'd run for a day, and we had 30 days supply of diesel. So losing mains power is not really an issue. It just flicks over, generators kick in. So we lost power, generators kicked in. Then 10 minutes later, Lawrence calls me and says, we just lost a generator. So we had two left. The site could survive on one, but it was tight. So I got in the car, and it's about 120 miles from where I live to the data center. Got in the car and started trucking towards the data center. And as I was sort of driving, it was just weighing through my mind the process and stuff. And then the phone went again. It's Lawrence. And Lawrence said, we just lost the second generator. And, you're accountable. They're my data center. I am accountable. I felt personally accountable. We'd done everything possible. All the engineering was in place, but things were just going wrong. And you could almost see like the bridge falling away in some of these movies and stuff. And so I got on the phone to one of the senior execs at the bank to say, here's the situation. We could be going to lose something here. We've got procedures in place. We're ready. And then whilst I was on the phone to him, the phone went and it was Lawrence. So I had to drop the exec off the line. In the good old days of car phones, when I'm sure I was driving my phone, which you're not allowed to do now. And answered the phone, and the third generator had gone. That was it. We were on battery. We had 27 minutes of power, and we had 27 minutes to shut the data center down as calmly and as in such a controlled way that you wouldn't get data corruption, etc. So it was the mission impossible with the fuse going across. So you know what to do. Let's just start shutting things down. We went back on the phone to the exec. Obviously the execs, everybody's upset, but it was a situation. And so got to the data center. The data center was dark. Mains power came back online. We had engineers crawling all over. We'd failed over to the other data center. So some services were there, some services weren't. We were in the middle of recovery. It probably took a good 12 hours to get back to normal. And when you think of all the banking systems, and the good stuff is in banking, there's lots of failover procedures. So if you lose a system, if the banking systems are down, there's credit card failover, which will basically mean you can still use your credit card, you can still get cash out, etc. But that was not good. And there was it turned out there was a fuel problem, which hadn't been picked up, even though they were tested and stuff. There's some contaminated fuel that got in, and that caused a problem. But however much you test and however much you stress test things do go wrong. That's probably the worst. There was the Olympics event, but I don't know whether we can come on to that later, or we can come on to that now if you want.
Well, did that happen during the Olympics?
No.
What happened during the Olympics?
So 2012 Olympics, Lloyds were the financial services partner for the 2012 Olympics. So we provided all financial services, all cash points. We had some branches. They had a ring of steel around Stratford, around the actual Olympic stadium. And so you couldn't get equipment in, you couldn't get equipment out. And I was accountable for all the IT services. That was my job. And it was great for my children because we got to go and see events and they lent us a torch and all these sort of positives before. But the Olympics opened on the Friday. On the Sunday, I had about 40 or 50 friends over for a barbecue because it's the Olympics. We're going to celebrate and all that sort of thing. And again, the phone went at, it's about 6:30. The phone went. There were a lot of people there. And there'd been a lightning strike on one of the branches. So there were two branches in the ring of steel. One was for the public, one was for journalists. And there'd been a lightning strike at the journalist branch, which had fried everything. The light bulbs had popped, all the servers, all the PCs, it was down. That branch served 60,000 journalists. And can you imagine being the person accountable for servers for 60,000 journalists when it doesn't work on the first Monday of the Olympics? That wasn't something I wanted my name to be on the front of the global press. So we had some great partners. We had Computer Center, who were the partner at the time for the Olympics, and they worked with me. A great guy called John Beard, James Bishops. That's some of the guys at Computer Center were exceptional that night. And we worked through the night. they replaced everything. They replaced light bulbs, they replaced PC servers, they even replaced the coffee machine and the kettle. They did everything. And it was something like 6:47 a.m. when the systems were all back and all tested. And the branch opened at 7. And at 7 o'clock, people came in, journalists were in, they never knew anything had happened. And I went to bed. But that was that was just a tough night. And good friends manned the barbecue. They had the party without me around my house, and I just stayed in my study and just worked through the night. But but people, I guess there's lots of in fairness, there's going to be loads of those stories in lots of arenas and other people's lives where you don't realize what's actually going on behind the scenes, and people are working tirelessly to just keep things running smoothly. And I guess we've got it with our armed forces, the medical people, doctors, nurses, so many people who just work so hard for other people. So it was just my turn on that evening to sit there and direct a recovery. But it was interesting, good fun, a learning experience, and great teamwork as well.
Yeah, I was with a friend at lunch yesterday, and he was having trouble with Airbnb, like the texting thing not working. He couldn't book the hotel room. And for me, he was a non-technical person. And I was like, you know what? My empathy goes to the engineering team. Like, I'm sure they're aware of this. It's probably complete chaos right now. Them trying to figure out, maybe their text message service went down for, two-factor or whatever it was. But they were going through some stuff, and he's like, I just don't understand why it won't work. And I was like, dude, we're bouncing light on fiber optic cables under the sea around the world in milliseconds. I was like, just give the nerds a break.
Pretty good at Starlink. Starlink's just amazing. I've got landline and I've got Starlink, and that's just what great technology, and it just works. So
let's talk a little bit about core values and people development. Coaching. Do you do a lot of coaching?
I do. I guess we talked earlier. I do the kids' soccer. So there's that side. Okay. And in the UK, you have to be trained with the FA, and they look at the sort of the different elements. So with the football, you're training their technical skills, you're giving them physical exercise. Also, there's the psychology and the teamwork there. So there's lots of things. But then from the work side, it's good. And this wasn't prepared. There's sorry, get the right camera. This is linked to the Paul Stoltz thing that we talked about earlier, and this is where I'll just show you some of the cards. So basically, what that is, there's a pack of cards. You can sort of read being challenged. I'll just pick brightening others' days. Title, position, status. So what it is, the core values is you take a couple 100 cards, lay them out on the table, and ask people to just pick 5 or 6 of them. And what you're doing is, lots of them are similar, but you're helping people focus in on what's important to them. Because how often do you sit there and think, what are the 5 most important core values to me? I don't think
not often. Yeah.
No. So you get down to basically a set, and quite often people will pick up, I can't decide on 5, so they pick up 10. So you then talk them through it. You get them to just compress it, get it down. But it's not actually the words that are written on the card. It's your interpretation in your mind about what's actually important to you. And Paul will probably have a heart attack if he hears me talking in this way, because he's so much better at it than I am. But you get down to that core set of values, and then from there, you can identify something called a deal breaker. So for me, making a difference has always been consistent. I've been using those cards personally for 20 years.
Wow.
15, 20 years now.
Where do you get them at?
I got them through going on that course. But you can just get them on Amazon and things. So it's called The Real Deal. But it's interesting when you start that core value of making a difference. The other values, when I was sort of 40, there'd be the other values would be ambition and reward and career growth and teamwork. And then now I'm in my mid to late 50s, you start to think health, family, helping others, teamwork. So it probably ties all the way back to that conversation we had right at the beginning about helping others develop, helping others grow. So there's the health element, absolutely. There's family. And I think as we go through our careers and we work so hard and we travel so much, in getting that balance with the family, I've definitely got that wrong over the years, and it's better than it was now. Is it perfect? No, but that's just me. I love work. But this exercise to get your core values, I think, is really useful. And there's a lady, I say her first name, called Stacy. I worked with her one company, and she knew about me and these cards, and we went through and identified her core values. And she'd just got a VP job offered to her at the company. So it's a promotion. And she looked at her core values, and she what we do is measure them now. Say, I have a scale of 1 to 10. What does this look like? And what does that look like? And so we went around and I said, so now put yourself mentally in that new role. Where do they sit? And 4 out of her 5 cards reduced, which was sort of fascinating. The one that went up was what she called security, but was actually money, because there was a good pay rise, there was a good package, but that money gave her and her family security, which is fine. But the other stuff and her deal breaker about sort of helping others and teamwork and all those things, they're dropped because the role was going to change the dynamic there. And again, a really brave thing that she did. She turned the job down. You know, we always apply, when you're ambitious, you apply for jobs, you try and get promotions. Well, she did. She secured it. She succeeded to get that promotion. And then she turned it down. And I've spoken to her, and she's happy and she's enjoying life. But when you go through that exercise and somebody takes that decision, there's always that doubt of, I hope I coached her in the right way there. But I think her family, the happiness is there. But knowing your core values and knowing what they are, and then aligning your work and your life to those, because core values in life with the family, okay, they're there, and we love your children, look after your children, raise them to have the right values and things. But then if work takes you away too much from those core values, then it sort of helped me question, is this actually the right thing? Is this something I want to do? And there's a nice thing actually about Palo Alto Networks. I was contacted, one of the first contacts before I joined, by a lady called Liz Kane, who's the HR director. And Liz, I'd worked with before at a previous company. Her values, her integrity, her ethics are extraordinary. And another guy called Ian Roberts and another lady called Maddo. When there are people in an organization that you really respect and respect their core values and their integrity, it gives you a good feeling about that company is a great company to go and work for, because I trust those individuals, that they are extraordinary and they would have worked for something. So, and it's been true. I joined, they maintain the highest set of core values, the highest integrity, and they're great people to work with and for. So, values is something very important to me personally. And literally the reason the cards are on my desk is I took a young woman through this exercise last week, and we're just looking at hers, but she's a lot younger at the start of her career. And it's good to sort of see the ambition and the money and those sorts of things in there. But they will evolve over the years, and it's just a good way to actually learn and help you grow as well.
Now, one of the things I always like to ask people that are farther ahead than I am. So I'm 37. I'm about to enter into my 40s. You just wrapped up your 40s. What advice or changes should I expect? How would you reduce your 40s to a couple sentences of what you learned?
Of what I learned?
Yeah.
Number one was probably health. I started to exercise a lot more in my mid 40s. So that's a really important thing, and it's stayed a constant now. And I understand more maybe about the benefits of health. The big mistake I made, I was commuting. So I live 100 miles away from London. I had a good job in London, and my twins were born. And I was getting up at 4 a.m. and I was getting home at 9 p.m. every day, 5 days a week for about 3 years. So that was tough. How I did it, I don't know. When I look back,
you had a good wife.
Amazing wife. Because I'd get home, and the reason I came out, I wanted to be with the kids. I wanted to see the kids, so the twins would be there. And then you start to stay away a little bit because you're just tired, and then you miss out on the family. And it's that whole balance of, I guess, your core values and coming back to what's important. The family are so important, and they, if you don't mind me slipping into my 50s a little bit, COVID.
Yeah.
This is another personal story. I'm not sure how relevant it is for your audience, but COVID hit. My children were interviewed by the headmaster to go to a private school in the UK. And they were interviewed in this seat, actually. And I was sitting in the corner over there because with safeguarding, you can't let a child talk to an adult or be in a room. So the headmaster asked my son, and he was 11, and they said, "What do you think about COVID?" And he said, "I love it." And then I was, "Sorry, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I get to see my dad." And my daughter said the same thing. And I sat over there, and it just got me. It's just COVID really helped bring the family back together. I know loads of people suffered and the tragedy in the world, but for me personally, with my family, it brought me back to the family. And I'd stopped. I was traveling. I was doing 4 or 5 countries a week at that point. I was always on a plane, in a hotel. And I changed after COVID because of that. I still travel and I still go around the world and go to America, but I know how important it is to spend time with the kids and the family.
Oh my goodness. That's a good story. So, man, COVID did the same thing for me. Very similar thing. I was workaholic, I really enjoyed it. It had worked for me then. And the excuse I made was when we had a kid and I was still doing the workaholic thing, it's like, they're not going to remember anything until they're like 2 or 3. So like, I can spend these next 2 or 3 years just like crushing it as hard as I can. And then at some point I'll have to stop. Well, 2 or 3 years goes by, and my wife calls me. It's a Saturday. I'm at the office. I was like really doing it. And in the background, I heard Grandpa, because my wife was over at her parents' house. Grandpa asked my daughter, who was like 3 or 4, he's like, "Is Daddy coming over?" I could just hear him in the background while I was on the phone with my wife. And she says to Grandpa, she goes, "No, Daddy doesn't do things with us." Cool. So here's what I did, Nick. I said, "Hold on, Michelle. I think we're at that point." And she's like, "Yeah, because our marriage was stressed from it too. Your marriage is obviously stressed from that anyways." So we knew our marriage was already stressed. I heard that and I was like, this is the moment. Like, this is it right now. So I hung the phone up. I went and I bought a camper and I showed up at Grandpa's house and I said, "We're going camping. Like, I don't work weekends anymore. Daddy doesn't work weekends anymore. Daddy comes home from work at 5 p.m. Daddy has dinner with you." And like that, Daddy is here. Like, I cannot, it just crushed my heart so much. And that was about 5-6 years ago.
It's interesting though, because what I found is then you prioritize more effectively, because just because you're not at work 100 hours a week, you can prioritize effectively. You can get just as much done, but it's a matter of really focusing and really delivering during the time, executing. So, and if you can segment your day in such a way that you have the time for your family, your time for exercise, time to eat healthily, which is sometimes compromised, and then the time to get your job done as well. And there's the odd weekends we have to work. I don't mind, but it's rare now. So,
it has to be the exception, not the rule,
And the real unfortunate example, CISO at Lloyd's, when I was the chief security officer, again, on holiday, I'd pop out for a cycle ride in the morning and I'd disappear up a mountain and I'd do an hour's worth of meetings. And then I'd come back to the family and cycle and just have the holiday. So it was like 7 a.m, so they didn't know. But my wife wondered why I wasn't losing more weight, because I was like out for this 2-hour bike ride, but I'd done 10, 20 minutes of cycling, the rest of it was work. But She did. I think she knew.
It sounds like you have a strong relationship, so that's real good.
Yeah.
One last question that I had. One thing that caught my eye, particularly about the prep document, was when they were talking about evaluating a risky career move. So Nick, I want your advice on if somebody's out there, they're contemplating a risky career move, how do they evaluate that risk and then gain confidence or to do it or not to do it?
It's interesting. So I'll give you the example of probably the biggest risk I took and then come back to how I evaluated it, if that's okay. And I've been through a few career changes. I spent 20 years at my first company and, we learned and I worked my way up from the bottom to a good senior position, headhunter, worked down in London, worked for one bank for a few years, and moved to another bank. And at the second bank, I was running this $2 billion cost optimization program, big program, critical for the bank and sort of share price impacting. And it was tough. It was the long hours. And during that, I was talking to lots of suppliers like IBM and Oracle and VMware and all these people. And a number of the vendors said, Nick, we like the way you interact. It's about that mutually beneficial outcome. It's not about trying to get every last drop of blood out of a supplier or vice versa. So they like that. So they approached me and they said, we'd like you to come and work for us. And I'd never thought about working for a vendor. And I'd always been this guy in the banks just doing stuff, delivering stuff for customers. And so I sort of weighing it up. And there's some of the glamorous elements, the international travel, which I wasn't used to, and these things. But what I did was went back to the cards and went back to the core values. And I had my 5 cards and I measured the impact of that change on my 5 cards. So I did the before measure and I did the after measure. And it was head and shoulders. It was, you need to go the opportunity, the culture. To give you an idea, from a culture perspective, in the banks, they do employee satisfaction surveys. I think they do in every organization, actually. And in the banks, the score was in the 20s. I ended up joining, I'd leapt out of banking, went on the supplier side, joined VMware, and they were running satisfaction survey scores of 70s, in the high 70s. And it was actually Liz, the lady who rang me up and asked me to join Palo Alto Networks. She was the lady who told me about that score during the sort of process. But probably the risk for me was I had to quit because I wasn't able to talk to any vendors about a job whilst I was running this program because I was negotiating and that wasn't ethical. So I had a discussion with my wife and I resigned with no job. So you've got a family, you've got a mortgage, you've got kids, private school, all that stuff. And yeah, so that was a big personal risk. But I think with the core values and where I could envision me going and how it actually linked to me personally, it was worth the risk. Everybody needs to measure up against their own personal circumstances and things and what's actually truly at risk. But yeah, for me personally, it's about those core values and where I'm going to travel on my journey ultimately.
Oh man, that is so good. Now I think we got through about half of our prep for this episode. I'm actually really interested in your thoughts and stuff, but I know we are at time. So an idea that I have is, maybe next month we could come back on and have the second half of the conversation if you're open to that.
I'm open to that because it's just a good conversation. And there's lots of personal stuff today. I hope you don't mind that. It's just
it's great
being authentic. So
that's what the show, the podcast is, us just hanging out and talking. That's what works. So
okay, maybe we get a beer next time then. But
yeah.
It's a bit early for you, I think. But
it's a bit early for me. I'll bring a Pellegrino. I'll get a... Thank you so much for listening. And if you found this episode useful, please share it with a friend or a colleague who you think would get value from it. And if you have topics that you would like to hear discussed on the podcast, either add me on LinkedIn or send me an email, joel@moderncto.io. Every time I get an email or LinkedIn message, it absolutely makes my day and inspires me to keep going.